Catching Carbon, everybody. We have Ryan King with us today. Ryan is the Chief Commercial Officer for a company called Undo. They spun out of the Future Forest Company. They were working on planting trees and on carbon capture, and Ryan came in with the team and a vision to do more. They're now working on enhanced rock weathering, and this is new for me, and I love this because Jeff kind of just said, "Hey, surprise episode! I've got a great guest. We're going to run with it." So I'm going to do some learning on the fly today. And who better to educate me than Ryan himself, man, that was there on day one. Ryan, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining Jeff and I on Catching Carbon Podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have a second grade level education or understanding of enhanced rock weathering, but from what I have now learned, I'm really fascinated. I'm not a skeptic of sequestration. I'm just not a huge advocate that's the best solution. It's a solution and it works for us today while we figure out alternatives. But you're gonna tell us about all the alternatives that you're working on that could make more viable, financial, impactful sense.
That's a good point, Jeff, because we get in our bubble, right, Ryan? Like we are kind of in the bubble of carbon capture and the use of CO2, and there's just so much going on outside of our sphere, but adjacent to it, that I think we want to start educating people on that are interested in climate as a whole.
Yeah, and enhanced rock weathering is one of these technologies that has kind of flown under the radar, but is now starting to surface a bit with certainly with XPRIZE and XPRIZE winners. So of the four winners of the $100 million XPRIZE fund, two of them were enhanced rock weathering companies. And it's really noteworthy that what they're looking for is how do you scale a solution to get to gigaton scale and do it in a way that effectively works with nature and can get the cost down and remove the carbon effectively forever. And so two of those companies were enhanced rock weathering companies. So it's a very exciting technology. It sounds very basic, but I can go into a lot more of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please. I think we'll start there. Educate us on that.
Do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Do it, Ryan. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
great.
prior to that, you beat me to the punch. I was going to jump in and congratulate you on your third runner up of XPRIZE and third runner up. Maybe they'd say, oh, you didn't even make the podium, but that's a $5 million prize out of I think there's 2,000 entrants into this. You beat out our good friends over there who got the XPRIZE prize, so be fourth runner up essentially at air capture, doing direct air capture. But they're doing amazing things as well. But to win that XPRIZE or third runner up, I consider that winning is outstanding. So great job there.
Brian. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah,
really awesome.
It was a 4-year competition, thousands of entrants, 20 finalists, and we over a year they chose four companies, and we were very happy to be one of them. And so it was a wonderful
something to be said about following the dollar. And Ryan, if you're saying two of the four were around enhanced rock weather, and we are excited to hear about it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be paying more attention.
Great. Well, should I go to kind of step one?
Yeah, it's step one. I don't know if we'll get to step two. You might blow our mind.
We'll get there. But I always like to start with natural rock weathering, right? And so this is the natural process that's occurred on planet Earth for millions of years, and it removes billions of tons of CO2 naturally, but it occurs on a much longer time scale. And so what happens is you have CO2 in the atmosphere that mixes with rainwater. When that interacts with rock surfaces, like on the side of mountains and whatnot, those rocks erode. We all kind of know rocks erode over time, but what's happening is there's a chemical reaction with that carbon dioxide and rainwater. It forms a weak carbonic acid that interacts with the rock face. It weathers. It forms a bicarbonate, and those bicarbonates make their way out through kind of soil systems, river systems, and out into the ocean where they become shells and other things. And so this is how the Earth's been removing CO2 for a very long time. And what we do is we speed up that process. And so we take crushed silicate rock, very small, between 0 and 4 millimeters, and we spread it very finely over agricultural land. And so what you do is you increase the reactive surface area of that rock. Instead of just a rock face with a lot of other rock behind it, you've made it much more reactive. And so its ability to weather expedites by 100,000 times, and you're able to remove CO2 much more quickly. The example that I always like to give is, if you get a bunch of coffee beans and you put them in a cafetiere, not ground up, and then put ground coffee beans in a cafetiere, you're going to get a much better coffee in with the ground beans than otherwise, just because you have more reactive surface area. And so that is the basics of what we do. And so we work, we have taken this natural solution, and we've sped it up, and we work with nature to remove CO2.
Ryan, I've got to ask probably what will be one of several of the dumb questions today. But you mentioned agricultural land and spreading across the agricultural land, and I'm assuming there is some sort of agricultural benefit, of course. But in theory, you could spread this over all land? Are we looking for like land near water because you want the runoff? Like, is it the win-win of beneficial to growing and also the carbon removal? But at scale, could you just do it anywhere?
I mean, you technically could do it anywhere. Where we like to do it, and I can go into the economics of it later, but
Like that? Yeah.
where the rock comes from, you kind of want to spread in the proximity of it, so you're not hauling, thousands of tons of rock, over thousands of miles. And so, kind of within a, 200-kilometer radius of where that rock comes from, generally. But when you look at different kinds of rock types, and rock, specifically basalt rock is the most abundant rock available, and you could spread it over any kind of land. For what we're doing now, we like to bound it around, the where the rock comes from. To some extent, the pH of the soil, you want to kind of stay within a certain bound, for the most benefit to the soil. And so when the rock weathers, you're getting that carbon removal benefit, but then the rock itself has macro and micronutrients like, potassium, magnesium, micronutrients like selenium, and so that's a natural soil enhancer. And so enhanced rock weathering, or spreading rock on field, can be a natural replacement for some liming.
Well, so in all of that, when you go through that bicarbonate process, is that considered a permanent storage of that CO2, even as it's into the soil and it's enhancing and all of that? And how do you validate that? And is that part of your kind of IP? Is that part of your process? How does that work?
Yeah. So, I think like with any of these newer technologies, you have to make assumptions for any kind of reversals, even over time, even if they're over 1,000 years. And so, we make assumptions for the amount of CO2 that might kind of re-enter the atmosphere from river systems, and for ocean systems, and if any plants kind of uptake them. And so kind of standard kind of across enhanced rock weathering is about 20% of the carbon that you're going to remove, or 20% of the carbon removing potential of rock. We remove that, as an assumption, because some of it will kind of go back into the atmosphere, but over 1,000-year time horizons, as these bicarbonates make their way through soil and through river systems and out to the ocean. But we aim to be as conservative as possible. I think it's
Yeah, that's
good,
great.
right? With any newer technology, you want to instill as much confidence as possible.
We're talking long horizons, 1,000 years. Um, and then you talk about like the exposure of the rock face. And so is this technology making like creating greater efficiencies out of the rock? Is it speeding the process along at all? Or is it more just maximizing efficiency?
It speeds up the process, because that rock otherwise would be sat in the side of a mountain or something like that. And so, by kind of crushing it and spreading it, you're really speeding up the process. Um, and and because we have to work with nature, we work in open ecosystems, similar to ocean alkalinity enhancement, which works in oceans. So enhanced rock weathering, we work in fields, and we have to. A lot of our time is spent measuring how much CO2 that we're removing, given different variables. So whether it's the rock type or the climate or the soil type or the soil pH or how finely ground the rock is. And so that, with enhanced rock weathering, that's the challenge. We know that it's sequestering CO2, and we know that there's what we call a weathering curve over time. But it's getting that as accurate as possible with empirical data from soil. Um, and so we at Undo, we take thousands of soil samples to pull out soil pore water, but also tracking. And I don't want to, we're on step one, two,
Yeah,
but, tracking.
I had a feeling we weren't getting the two, so just make one really long.
Tracking cations or positively charged anions through the soil, through what we call the near field zone and the far field zone. And so once those cations or those bicarbonates make their way through the soil, then they're effectively locked up with, some assumptions on reversal over time.
So you mentioned you could replace lime. Could you replace ammonia with this? I mean, when you're enhancing this soil, is that part of a long-term business model, which you may not be there yet, but is replacing those and enhancing fertilizer, that farmer or whomever is getting carbon credits as well as just not using lime, not using ammonia-based products for growth?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a benefit to farmers. When we look at farmers' kind of cost structures, and if they're having to pay for a certain amount of liming to, increase the pH of their soil to a certain point, if they can reduce the cost of that by using, rock dust, which we deliver for free, um, then it's a benefit to farmers, and so they can improve their economics. We spend a lot of time and energy in how we do the measurement of this, improving it, and generating demand within carbon markets so that we can fund the activities that we're conducting.
Yeah.
Ryan, you mentioned, okay, Jeff.
Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned the economics, and we're kind of starting to flirt with it. So, Stripe, Microsoft, they're buying removal off of y'all, which is fantastic. You're delivering to the farmers for free, which to me signals that there's probably some level of sequestration or utilization credit in there. So, yeah, if you don't mind, kind of walk us through how you're able to commercialize this, which I think we're always fascinated by. What is the pathway to profitability? Is it the carbon markets? Is there more? And I think it's really interesting when you start to see different revenue streams tying into the model. And then the win-win with farmers is fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
no,
that's kind of where I was going as well. It's why do you have to give it to the farmers for free? Nothing against the farmers, but if you're displacing lime, they're not buying the lime. Why can't they buy your product and you get the carbon credits on top of that?
yeah. Well, we're trying to. I mean, we're still, enhanced rock weathering is still relatively new, and so we're trying to, create fans and create advocates for what we're doing. And if farming networks are so tight knit, and if Joe, Farmer Joe sees Farmer, Bob, and we've delivered all this rock dust to Farmer Bob, and you know, nothing bad has happened, and it's helped. They're going to start wanting it as well, and so we're trying to create more of a
Yeah, sure.
virtuous cycle. And so when it comes to the economics of it, I think it is important to have multiple revenue streams. Where we are right now is our primary and yeah, our primary revenue stream is monetizing in carbon markets. I'm sure that will diversify over time, but this is the best way through right now because you have great companies like Microsoft and British Airways and Stripe and lots of others who we work with who want to speed up this technology, get it going, and the best way to do that is right now through the voluntary carbon market.
Yeah.
Um,
So where is the core of your pilot programs. You're in London, but are you doing more in the U.S. or where's this research happening? And so where are you kind of generating these carbon credits right now?
Yeah, I mean, we are. I'd say our kind of spiritual homeland is in the UK, in Scotland. That's where a lot of our early basalt-based spreading occurred, and where a lot of our science and scientific research is being conducted. Um, Interestingly, the more we looked into enhanced rock weathering, the more we realized that the actual rock feedstock is really, really critical. And basalt, while very abundant, weathers more slowly. It has more minerals like quartz, for example, that might take longer to weather. And so we really looked into the feedstock and tried to determine what the best rock feedstock for enhanced rock weathering was. And we found a really great silicate rock called wollastonite, which nobody has heard of, and that's okay.
I
Um,
can't even spell that.
yeah, I know. I always misspell it, but it's more of kind of like as more of a crystalline structure. And so it weathers very quickly. And the other benefit of it is it has almost zero heavy metals in it, which you'll find some in kind of basalt, which are kind of well within EU soil organic standards, which are the most stringent ones. But we found this rock feedstock called wollastonite, and we have a great partnership with a company in Canada called Canadian Wollastonite, operating out of Kingston, Ontario. And that's where we're doing the majority of our work. And the main benefit of it is this wollastonite rock product will weather kind of almost entirely within 5 or 7 years, whereas basalt might take 20 years. And so if
This
you
is
start
not,
looking if you
yeah,
start looking
it's
at the
interesting.
if you start looking at the economics of when we get paid, right, to deliver carbon credits to companies, we want to try to bring that as close to now as possible and not spread our kind of payments over, say, a 20-year time horizon.
Yeah. So, and share what you can, obviously, and don't what you can't. But what is your differentiation? So it seems like the crushed rock, you've identified this volastomite, basalt is the common. So your third runner up, the ultimate winner of the X Prize was, I believe, Maddie Carbon, who is using the basalt in India and doing that there. What's your differentiation from them? Do you have specific IP? Is it in the crushing? Is it in the the I don't even know the generation of that rock itself, the
Yeah.
weathering aspect?
It's slightly counterintuitive, but it's in the science and it's in the technology. Undo as a company has always been operators. We really, we go out, we source, we spread, we measure, and we just kind of keep going, keep going, keep going, keep replicating. Um, and in that pursuit, we've developed a number of uh, very innovative ways of measuring how much CO2 has been removed. And we've patented that. I can't talk about it yet because we should be putting a paper out on it in about a month. But the main kind of thrust of it is how do you extract soil pore water, from soil cores so you can measure those bicarbonates uh, in a really consistent and scalable way. And we've figured out how to do that. And the other thing that we've done is we've built a fully integrated tech platform, which takes in all of the operational data, all of the life cycle analysis data, and all of the measurement data, which is really critical for enhanced rock weathering. So we can track every ton of rock from quarry to field. And we have all the data from the trucks, from weighbridges, from tractors. We have GPS located tractors, so we know exactly how much is being spread. We know where it's being, and we're able to superimpose it onto the soil type. What type of soil is it? What's the soil pH? Where is it specifically? And so it's all in real time. And so from a scalability standpoint, if you can do measurement really seamlessly and cheaply, then you can bring in data really quickly and credibly, then you can verify more credits in a scalable way.
Right. It sounds like, you know, everything's coming together, and with the move to Canada and partnering and finding, the perfect rock, it works, but I'm assuming there's still agriculture there. Yes, right, in
Oh yeah.
Ontario. Like you're so what would have happened? And I think about like doing the direct air capture and doing it strategically in a place where there's a large underground well, right? What if you found rock formation that was, in undeveloped land or somewhere in the, in the mountains of New Zealand? Um, or maybe there is agriculture, but it's natural. No one's actually growing crops there, but there's plenty of growth. Would it ever make sense to move the business to where you could turn those carbon credits faster? It's instead of 5 to 7 years, it becomes 2 to 3 years because of the discovery of a very specific rock. I know that's a very niche question, but like, is agriculture so important that you're going to be focused on that relationship with the farmers, or is it really about capturing as much CO2 as quickly as possible? And that may mean that you're in a completely undeveloped area, setting up shop and doing something at scale.
Yeah, well, I'd say we're in it for the long term. And what we want to be able to do is set up as many sites as is kind of relevant for us and possible so that we can, start really kind of oiling this big machine, because enhanced rock weathering really in some ways, even though we're not kind of building direct air capture plants or we don't have a lot of physical infrastructure. It's a real kind of infrastructural play, because you have to kind of create these networks of hauliers and farmers and spreaders and community engagement and all of that, and it has to come together. And so I think in kind of an untouched area that might have a great rock type, it might be impractical to do that because
Gotcha.
you might not have the infrastructure set up. You might not have roads. You might not have ways of moving the rock. The farms might be really spread out, and you're sending rock kind of thousands of miles, and then you don't want to be putting out more CO2 than you're capturing in your exploit. And right now, for at least for us in our operation, we have a 90% efficiency rate. So for every 100 tons of CO2 that we capture, we're spending 10 to capture them.
Well, and that's including the transportation of the rocks to point of use to and all that.
It depends. I mean, some of it is in the crushing of the material, but with our partner in Canada, we're investing in kind of electrical mobile crushing units. So we're trying to electrify as much as we can. And Canada as a project location is really, really great. I mean, the Canadian government has been very, very receptive. I know there are now over 70 carbon removal companies in Canada,
Yeah.
and it's been very, very welcoming, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, they definitely they open arms for the investment and setting up like all the big projects seem to start and end in Canada. So it's great. They do great stuff up there. Yeah, it's yeah, even when the first time we spoke and even now, yeah, it's we had a gentleman named Garrett Boudinot on from Vicarb about 2 or 3 episodes ago. They're doing very similar but very different to what you're doing. At the end of the day, they're kind of not taking the rock. They're using like a limestone or some other process, but then injecting the CO2 with it to create the bicarbonate. But then they're mixing that with ocean water. But I just like I say, I mean, it's the same but divergent or different, but some similarities. And the monitoring or the calculation and estimation of how much you captured and validation of that's more their IP than anything. I think at the end of the day, much like yourselves. But what's fascinating to me, and it's exciting about it is again, these are natural,
Yes.
viable, large scale things, scalable projects or really technologies, not projects, that make a lot of sense to me. Again, all the capture and all these other things, great, you can see Quest for it, but same thing for them. You can do direct air capture for your CO2 source to then create those same bicarbonates to put it into the water, and then you're doing the same with the rocks and things like that. So I think it's fascinating. I think these are great opportunities, and to see alternatives, and I'm really happy to see that the XPRIZE went that direction as well as direct air capture, but went a multitude of directions on this. So really
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. And, enhanced rock weathering has the potential to remove about 4 billion tons of CO2 per year by 2050, if deployed at scale. And
Is that just with undo or just
and
the industry as a whole?
so enhanced rock weathering as a
Yeah.
carbon removal technique has that ability, and it's really tremendous. And so these companies that work with nature and help have nature do what it does best. Uh,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm super supportive. At the same time, I think we really need all carbon removal techniques. So, you know, direct air capture and biochar and all of these other great natural solutions. And now I think maybe I'm living in my own bubble too much, but I think ERW, enhanced rock weathering, has kind of started to create its own kind of category, and it has a bit of its own gravity now.
So what are I mean, obviously, you mentioned quite a few of them, but what are your biggest challenges to kind of get from where you are today to kind of full scale? Is it the credit market? Is it the validation? Is it identifying the right rock source? Like what's the number one issue you face today?
I think the main challenge is, there's still a bit of uncertainty in how those bicarbonates kind of move through, from soil to ocean. And a lot of companies are needing to take kind of bigger and bigger haircuts, while they're as agreement in the community with standards, with verification bodies starts to coalesce. And so that makes it a little bit challenging for a project developer like us, to make, more forward-looking plans, especially as we set up, measurement sites and we have ways of doing things. Keeping in mind when we set up a measurement site, we have to kind of baseline, in a certain way, and then take soil samples over a time period. And, we have to be looking for the right things. But, if what you need to find, or if how you do it changes in a year, then does that previous data still count? And so that's one thing that we're wrestling with. But I think we're coming to a good place on that. Um, and then I'd say the other thing is demand. You have a small-ish cohort of companies that are willing to invest in new things, in an attempt to um, kind of ring fence off future supply, which has been really helpful, really, really helpful for companies like ours. We just need more of them, um, to do that.
That's
You
that's the call to action right there.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
call to action. Yeah, yeah,
Need more
exactly.
people to the table.
More people to the
That's
table.
great.
Yeah, and Ryan, as you think about that, right, and using the platform that we have, and again, a little bit different, but how can we support that? And some of it might just be education and advocation, but also thinking about your partners and how you try to get more people that are actually like kind of the boots on the ground, the key partner or the investor. Yeah, what is the strategy to onboard, and how can we help support that?
Yeah, I mean, more kind of, conversations like this, and trying to promote more of what companies like ours, not just enhanced rock weathering, even though I'm quite partial to enhanced rock weathering, but other natural solutions are doing. The great thing about DAC and biochar is, these are metered solutions, and so there's less risk in understanding how much CO2 you've removed. But we know that what we're doing is removing CO2 from the atmosphere and doing good things for the earth. And I think people just need to, I don't want to say take a chance, because it's not really taking a chance. It's try something new, kind of learn new things, but try to engage with this community, and we'll try to, keep educating and talking and going to conferences and doing everything that we do.
I've got a fun one for you. When I
That's
was a kid, I wanted to be a geologist because I was obsessed with gemstones and their value. But who would have thought the real treasure was in taking care of our environment?
Love that.
Oh, the
Luke,
mic
I
drop that
knew,
right
Luke,
I
I
there.
love that.
knew.
I can't beat that.
You can use that one. I'm going to let you have it.
I
Nobody
will use
can.
it. I will use it.
Nobody can. Did you
Awesome.
bedazzle your jeans too with all these
All right, all right, hang on,
stones
hang on,
that
hang
you
on. Cut,
found?
cut. Pause done. Pause done. Hey, Ryan, we know you got to jump, and we
We got our
appreciate the
stopping
time
it for you.
today. But
Absolutely.
hey, how do we reach you? How do we find you?
Uh, Through our website, it's unfortunately someone bought the kind of undo.com like 1,000 years ago, and it's like a blog, and that's a big problem. But like it's un-do.com,
Yeah.
and
Gotta
follow.
have the hyphen.
Yeah, well, now we got
We
a
have we
fundraising.
have.
We got to get that site.
I know. Yes, that's a call to
Mm.
action.
There
a
we go,
four
baby.
a four-letter known word URL that has meaning. Yeah, that's about $1 million. Sure.
Jeff hoarded those in another life.
Oops.
Call him up on the side.
Don't even get me started
Yeah.
on that one.
Awesome.
But the
Hey,
brand name
I,
it was too good. It was too good, and we had to go with it.
Yeah, and it has a catchy ring. I'm going to get the little undo hat. But Ryan,
Yeah.
seriously, yeah, thank you. It's been interesting, and seems
absolutely.
to be a ton of momentum. Those natural solutions, they just feel more and more compelling every time we talk about them. So
Absolutely.
really appreciate you giving us time today.
My pleasure. Great
Yeah.
chat. Thanks, guys.
Great week, Ryan. Appreciate it.